this is the time to invite our international guest today, Dr. Faye Harrison. Dr. Faye Harrison, let me introduce her as an American anthropologist. Her research interests include political economy, power, diaspora, human rights, and intersections of race, gender, and class. She is currently a professor of African American Studies and Anthropology at the University of Illinois at the Urbana-Champaign. She formerly served as joint professor of anthropology and African American Studies at the University of Florida, where she met our friend Professor Baliram Gaikwad. Harrison received her BA in anthropology in 1974 from Brown University and her MA and PhD in anthropology from Stanford University in 1977 and 1982 respectively. She has conducted research in the United States, United Kingdom, and Jamaica. Her scholarly interests have also taken her to Cuba, South Africa, and Japan. From 1989 to 1991, she served as president of the Association of Black Anthropologists, known as ABA-ABA. During her term with the ABA, she worked to ensure ABA presence at American Anthropological Association, conferences and commissions, and helped to establish the ABA journal Transforming Commissions and Transforming Anthropology, which was first published in 1990. She served as president of the International Union of Anthropological and Ethnological Sciences from 2013 to 2018, a position that allowed her to collaborate with anthropologists around the globe. She is an author and an editor of Decolonizing Anthropology and wrote Outsider Within, Reworking Anthropology in the Global Age in the year 2008. In addition to dozens of articles, encyclopedia entries, essays, book chapters, and reviews. She is the recipient of so many awards. Just to mention a few: Junior Symbol of Hope Award in the year 2003, Society for the Anthropology of North America Sana Prize for Distinguished Achievement in the Critical Study of North America in the year 2004. In 2007, Zora Neale Hurston Award for Mentoring, Service and Scholarship, Southern Anthropological Society that awarded this particular award to her. And the President's Award, American Anthropological Association presented this award. And again in the year 2018, she received the President Award from American Anthropological Association. And in the same year, she received Distinguished Service Award from the International Union of Anthropological and Ethnological Sciences. And importantly, to mention over here, on this particular occasion, that Dr. Faye Harrison has been the mentor of the translator of this book, Professor Baliram Gaikwad, for his Fulbright postdoctoral fellowship at University of Florida, United States, and even in all his later academic achievements. So let us give a big round of applause and welcome our international guest today, Dr. Faye Harrison. Madam, we are eager to listen to you and meet you virtually. Thank you very much for your presence over here, madam. Please address the gathering. Thank you.
I was honored when my dear colleague invited me to write the foreword. I am not an Indianist. Although, as an anthropologist, in my writings, in my teaching, India figures prominently. This book that we're celebrating will be on the reading list of my students here, even if they're not specializing in India, because I believe that Dr. Gaikwad has translated and made available a book of utmost significance for comparative literature, not just Indian or Dalit literature. Dalit literature is world literature. And that means students all over the world who read English, even if they don't speak it fluently, should be exposed to Dalit voices, epistemologies, creativity, such as the work of Anna Balsate, a novelist, a poet, a street theater performer, an activist who understood the relationality between Dalit oppression and the oppression that African descended people suffered and suffer still in the United States of America and other parts of the African diaspora. So I am heartened and moved by the history that I just heard. I was not aware, but I'm not surprised, because I'm aware that from the latter part of the 19th century, particularly in the post-emancipation period, that African American men and women organized themselves for what we call racial uplift. And very often they situated that uplift in a transnational and global perspective. And in that perspective, particularly as we move into the 20th century, they acknowledge the common ground between racial oppression in its most flagrant forms in South Africa and in the United States, particularly in the Jim Crow South, with the injuries and indignities that colonialism unleashed around the world. And if we go back to what was called the Negro Women's Club movement, and to Pan-African congresses that our W.E.B. Du Bois helped to organize, we see that very often Indian anti-colonialists and anti-racists appeared, participated. And if we move to the 1940s, I think in the immediate post-World War II period, we see in the archive that the distinguished Dr. Bahasaheb Ambedkar corresponded with his counterpart and contemporary, W.E.B. Du Bois. They recognized the common ground, the similarities, not the sameness. I mean, there have been Dalit intellectuals and organizers, particularly around 2001 in Durban, that insisted that casteism is racism. But even if we don't go that far to that equivalence, it doesn't take being a rocket scientist to see and to acknowledge the relationality, the parallels, and at times the convergences between the casteist injuries and dehumanizations that Dalits have and still experience, and particularly the anti-Blackness that white supremacy inflicts upon Africans and African-descended people worldwide. I was privileged to develop a collegial relationship with your distinguished colleague, Baliram Geitman, when he spent a year at the University of Florida, my former employer, within the African American Studies program. I served as his host because I understood the importance of my students and colleagues learning more about the Dalit experience in India through a lens such as that of our colleague, Dr. Geitman, who situated his interests and commitment to Dalit studies within a broader cross-cultural, intercultural, and transnational context. A context focused on the commonalities between the oppressed, or what Franz Fanon described as the wretched of the earth. And Paulo Freire described as the oppressed, whose predicaments demand particular critical pedagogies towards conscientization, and from conscientization to the forms of movement building that can move us further towards emancipation, liberation, and full humanity. English is a global language. Of course, that implicates the history of empire. But in pragmatic terms, if English is a global language, that means that more people in India herself can read Fakira because of this translation. And people all around the world who are Anglophone have the option and the ability to read this book and be inspired and motivated to do further study. This is a timely publication and release. It's always timely, unfortunately, because the reality of Dalit dehumanization is ubiquitous, although denied. It is denied in the Indian diaspora. For instance, in the United States, different parts of this country, there have been campaigns to make caste a protected category for corporations, for universities, so that caste, as well as race, gender, sexuality, physical or mental ability, disability, can be included in anti-discrimination policies. There's been incredible opposition to that inclusion of caste. In good measure, because many Indian immigrants and visitors deny the continuing significance and injury of caste. Very similar to what we call color blindness or post-raciality here, where too many Americans deny the continuing significance and oppressive force of structural and experiential racism. I hope that Professor Dr. Geitman will inspire many other scholars to engage in translations of important works that should be able to ascend to the rank of world literature. And if that means translating these books, poems, plays, and other texts into English, so be it. But remember that many world people who are your allies potentially read in their first or second languages, which are French, Spanish, Portuguese, and many languages, other languages in the global South. So I think we're at a point when we do our translation and move forward with these projects. We should think of making works available from the South to the North, but increasingly from one site in the South to another. And so I think and I hope that this is the beginning of what will be a long-term project in bringing the world closer together through engaging texts, a new canon that we can enjoy together, that we can critique together, that we can consume, not necessarily as scholars, but as just interested readers for whom reading a novel is an enjoyable experience. So thank you for giving me this short time to relay my greetings, express my profound solidarity and appreciation for the important work that you do at the University of Mumbai and other universities across your nation. Know that you have friends and colleagues in other parts of the world who are very much interested and appreciative of what we can learn, literary and cultural experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, madam. It is an early hour at your place, I believe. It must be 5 o'clock in the morning. And thank you very much for joining us at the very early hour of the day and enlightening us with your words of wisdom and experience. Madam, we find a breach between two cultures of ours, and truly you are a global voice of vulnerable community. And really you are the best person to be associated with us from the United States, as you are the person who drafted the report of World Human Rights Conference held at Vienna in the year 1993. Thank you very much for being with us.